Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Tonight on Our News, why the PM says the Minnis administration's pre-election numbers were off by $1 billion. The PM promises a VAT reduction no later than January 1st, pension payments to increase on December 1st, and emergency orders will end next month. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, there's a $1 billion difference in the numbers provided in the Minnis administration's pre-election economic and fiscal update report and the truth, according to Prime Minister Philip Davis, who presented his government's supplementary budget statement in the House of Assembly today. Vonique Toot has the details.
The numbers provided by the Ministry of Finance for the period ending the 30th of September 2021 reveal a $1 billion difference from the numbers provided by the previous government in their pre-election report.
Davis says he requested a full accounting of government's fiscal position, adding a renowned accounting firm has been reviewing information provided by the Ministry of Finance as of September 30th, which is 1 month after the release of the Minnis administration's pre-election report.
It is painfully clear that the pre-election report was an incomplete presentation of the government's contingent and real liabilities. For example, it excluded over $100 million of contracts executed by the Ministry of Works, for which no funding has been provided in the budget.
According to Davis, the pre-election report also omitted a loan assumed by government for which the only source of payment is the cash-strapped Bahamas Power and Light. But that's not all the firm found.
The report excludes amounts owing for taxes for a star witness in a criminal case of a former cabinet minister. This is a very unusual arrangement, which is supported by a promissory note signed by a senior official of the Ministry of Finance.
Davis promised to present the final report to Parliament, but warned not all of those financial obligations can be met in the existing framework. Then there's the issue of borrowing. Davis said the former government entered into an IMF loan without a legal opinion to confirm whether government could comply with the terms. As for the financing provided by the $100 million World Bank loan to expand hospitals on Grand Bahama and New Providence, Davis said it was poorly planned and managed.
They have the money. It's in the central bank somewhere. They draw it all down, even though no architectural drawings had been completed, even though final costing had not been completed, and even though no contract had been signed.
The Prime Minister also slammed the BPL rate reduction bond, which threatens to saddle Bahamians with a 20% increase in electricity bills due to delays in the offering.
The cost associated with this floundering attempt to obtain the bond, I'm advised, is now far in excess of $20 million.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Vonique Toot.
The Prime Minister projecting that value-added tax could be reduced from a rate of 12% to 10% no later than January 1st.
It should have been late this morning, but the drafters haven't got it to me. It will be coming by next week. It will be late.
So no specific date for the actual reduction of that?
We're hoping, we're still working those modules out. The latest will be 1st of January.
Meanwhile, Press Secretary Clint Watson confirmed that VAT will be reintroduced on breadbasket items. Davis said experts believe that zero rating schemes are an ineffective and inefficient way to provide relief to the vulnerable in society. He announced the government is committed to increasing direct cash transfers to families that need the support with the reintroduction of the RISE program. Well, public service pension payments will increase by $6.4 million on December 1st, according to Prime Minister Davis, who also announced the reinstatement of increment payments for public officers and a Christmas lump sum for people receiving COVID-19 unemployment assistance. Jillian Gray has that.
There's no way to alleviate entirely the suffering that they would have experienced over the past 18 months. But the hope is that this payment can mark the beginning of a new, more hopeful time for them.
Prime Minister Philip Davis promising a $500 Christmas lump sum for thousands of Bahamians receiving COVID-19 unemployment benefit assistance administered by the National Insurance Board. Davis told Parliament that more than 17,000 people are currently receiving assistance in the amount of $100 per week. The Prime Minister also announced a $6.4 million increase in pension payments as of December 1st.
Out of 742 persons receiving less than $500 per month in monthly pension, they will receive an increase of $100.
Davis added the 2,012 people currently receiving more than $500 but less than $1,000 in monthly pension will get a monthly increase of $75, while the 4,432 people currently receiving a monthly pension greater than $1,000 can expect a monthly adjustment of $50.
Annual cost of this adjustment is $6.4 million, which is less than the amount owed in business license fees by one developer in New Providence, who received the assistance of the former administration to avoid paying what was legally owed to the government. The previous government chose to help one wealthy developer. We choose instead to help thousands of Bahamians.
Davis was not shy about slamming the former administration for not focusing more on Bahamians, as he said his government will also reinstate increment payments for public officers, something he says the Minnis administration overlooked. The reinstatement of increments will be backdated to July 2021 to cover this fiscal year.
The increments, which are nominal adjustments in earnings for the majority of public officers of no more than $700 per year, were withheld by the previous government, even as lavish public contracts were awarded to family members of cabinet ministers.
Those increment payments are expected to begin January 2022 and total $8 million this year. Davis said that will be funded by the revenue experienced in the first quarter. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Meanwhile, emergency orders will end next month after the state of emergency expires on November 13th, according to Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville, who says he intends to bring new legislation to the House to combat the spread of COVID-19. Darville says it will redefine the role of the competent authority.
Our administration will not renew the emergency orders once they expire on November the 13th already. Talks are on the way with the Office of the Attorney General to devise fresh new legislation to address the management and the major health risks that can affect the Bahamas. As part of this legislation, we will remove and redefine the role and duty of the once competent authority.
The government has also promised free COVID-19 testing. During the pilot program on Inagua, over 180 people received rapid antigen tests. 3 of them tested positive. 2 of them were from the same family. Dr. Darville says community spread on the island has been ruled out. Well, opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis calling the Prime Minister's supplementary budget statement an inaccurate reflection of the country's finances. He added it is careless to suggest that the pre-election report was off by $1 billion. Berthany McDermott reports.
He's basically said that we have hidden $1 billion in such a short space of time. That is a reckless and dangerous statement. And he must provide such evidence as the debate proceeds.
Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis hitting back at the Prime Minister's assertion that there is a $1 billion difference between the Minnis administration's pre-election report and the truth.
We have always complied and followed the law. We have not deviated. We are a law-abiding administration.
Shadow Finance Minister Kwesi Thompson also slammed the Davis administration's supplementary budget communication, calling it political rhetoric filled with half-truths. As for the Prime Minister's assertion that over $100 million in Ministry of Works contracts was excluded from that report, Thompson insisted the former government followed the law.
As you know, the Prime Minister didn't provide any details as to what $100 million contracts he was speaking about. My response to that is the pre-election report, it complied with what the law said it should comply with.
Well, the official opposition also taking issue with the government's plan to reduce value-added tax to 10%. This as they're suggesting Bahamians will have to pay more on breadbasket items.
What they have said is that they will decrease VAT, but what they have not said is that for all of those items that were previously zero rated, it will actually increase by 10%. And so the cost of food will go up.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Mostly clear skies outside our studios. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, everybody, for your first look at weather on this beautiful Wednesday evening. Outside our studios right now, temperatures are in the low 80s, 82 outside, with just a few clouds. We'll call it mild, slightly warm but mild. Winds out of the southwest, light at 5 knots, and your field slight temperature in the mid-80s. Satellite view, nice, lovely day around the islands. Weak boundary drifting into the central Bahamas with some isolated showers along its boundary, but that boundary is expected to fall off and dissipate later on tonight with high pressure building in. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, the health minister promises a PMH probe following a protest outside Parliament and a man killed during a double shooting in 8 Mile Rock. The details when Our News returns.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville promising an investigation into allegations made during a protest outside the House of Assembly today. A small group of protesters waved placards in Rawson Square this morning to raise concerns about maternity patients at Princess Margaret Hospital.
I, as minister, assure the mothers, families, and general public that a full investigation will take place into these matters, and the findings will be made public, and all the necessary steps will follow. I have been appraised of the shortfalls in terms of resources at the hospital and intend to do my best to meet these challenges, but will not condone neglect of those persons entrusted in our care.
And the resumption of in-person learning will not be an easy task, according to Education Minister Glenys Hanna-Martin, who says the COVID-19 pandemic has presented unprecedented challenges. Giorgio Bain has that.
Interruptions in education brought on by the pandemic are widening the learning divide, according to Education Minister Glenys Hanna-Martin, who says it has had adverse effects on students, especially those with special needs.
The COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the education of our children has presented an unprecedented challenge. Indeed, what could be called a state of emergency. From the evidence emerging, the interruption of education in our public schools has been cataclysmic, or can be deemed, in the words of UNESCO, a catastrophe.
Another factor hindering the return to school campuses is the delay in school repairs.
It seems that the annual summer school repair effort has lagged, and it is now incumbent upon us in this new administration to accelerate those works so that when in-person classes are recommenced, as per the advice of the Minister of Health and Wellness, the physical plant of our schools will be in acceptable condition to welcome our children back. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, this reality will, in and of itself, hinder in-person classes in some of our schools, despite our best efforts.
According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, school closures carry social and economic costs for the most vulnerable students. According to Hannah Martin, this makes it critical that the Ministry of Education begin the process of assessing how the interruption in face-to-face learning has affected students in the Bahamas. The Ministry of Education has enlisted the help of the Department of Statistics in understanding the barriers students face in accessing virtual learning.
We do know, if only somewhat anecdotally, that among those barriers are challenges with internet access and the provision of student supervision, particularly for working parents.
Reporting for R News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
In other news, over on Grand Bahama, a man was killed last night during a double shooting at the Platinum Lounge in Pinedale, 8 Mile Rock. Police press liaison ASP Stephen Roll says officers received reports of the shooting shortly after 10:30.
Upon the officer's arrival, initial investigation revealed that 2 adult males were standing in front of the business establishment when they were approached by a lone gunman who produced a firearm and fired shots in their direction. As a result, both males received injuries about the body.
EMS personnel pronounced one of the men dead on the scene. The other man was transported to Rand Memorial Hospital, where he's listed in serious but stable condition. As police investigate this latest killing, Roll says officers will determine if there are surveillance cameras in the area that may have captured the incident. He also appealed to anyone with information to contact police at 919 or 911. When our news comes back from the break, PAHO applauds local contact tracing, and a local squash tournament scores rave reviews. Find out more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. The Bahamas Ministry of Health has already introduced measures to stop clusters of COVID-19 on the Family Islands, according to officials from the Pan American Health Organization. During the weekly COVID press briefing, Dr. Sylvain Aldeguerri explained the measures that should be taken to manage clusters of infections.
What we know from the reports, the regular reports from the Ministry of Health of the Bahamas, is that they are actually implementing these actions already. And the ministry has expanded the testing thanks to the use of antigen rapid test and is rolling out very strict and organized contact tracing activities.
Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville told reporters Tuesday that clusters have been identified on Inagua, San Salvador, and other Family Islands. Those islands are without major healthcare facilities. PAHO says in addition to testing and adherence to public and social health measures, vaccination should be a part of COVID management.
Vaccination should be encouraged and should be accessible to all eligible people according to the national regulations. So you see at this point all the importance of the primary healthcare network, including in remote islands of the Bahamas archipelago.
Atlanta takes Game 1 in the World Series. Marcellus Hall has that and more tonight in sports.
Thanks, Christina, and welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The Fall Classic getting started last night. Game 1 of the World Series. Without further ado, let's take you to the action. Atlanta Braves and Houston Astros in Houston for Game 1 of the Major League Baseball World Series. Braves putting the pressure on early as the very first batter, Jorge Soler, driving one deep and gone to left field. That puts Atlanta up 1-0. Atlanta not done. Austin Riley, he followed with a double to deep left field. That scores another run. Braves now up 2. To the third inning we go. Braves up 3, and this time it's Adam Duvall with a 2-run blast. That puts Atlanta up 5-0. Astros would score a couple of runs after Braves starter Charlie Morton left with a leg injury, suffered on this comebacker up the middle. He suffers a fracture to his tibia and is done for the series. Braves, though, they get the victory 6-2. Your final with Game 2 set for tonight. Meanwhile, here locally, Four Wall Squash Club hosting its inaugural beginners tournament on Sunday. Co-ed event featuring some pretty good competition. Sean Knowles was your overall champion, taking the title. Director Mike Fields is pretty pleased with how things went down. They do have some plans to have some more tournaments as the year progresses. And there it is. You check on sports for you here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Thanks, Marcellus. Still ahead, Greg is back with the extended forecast. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Possible thunderstorms ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center.
Thanks again, Christine. Welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. We have a weak frontal boundary still hanging out across the central Bahamas, basically a frontal trough. Some isolated showers along that boundary will continue to drift towards the south, eventually dissipating overnight through tomorrow. High pressure in the Gulf of Mexico will be moving across us, generating some very nice conditions, but that's all ahead of a frontal boundary across the central United States. Should get near by late Thursday into Friday, so some showers along that, but strong winds and a nice change in the air mass behind that for the weekend. Non-tropical lows still off the coast of the United States. National Hurricane Center giving that about a 40% chance for formation. Will continue to move into the Atlantic and the tropics now remaining quiet, and tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the next 5 days. Beaching and boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. We expect those winds to be out of the southwest at 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. While in the central and southeastern Bahamas, we expect those winds to be variable at 5 to 10 knots. Seas running 1 to 3 feet. Low tide will be at 7:42 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. Expecting some very nice weather on the weekend, as well as some windy conditions to enjoy. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.